guys, welcome to and welcome back to my channel. We are back yet again for another review, and this time we'll be talking about episode 9 of Insecure for season 5. We only have one episode left, so let's get into everything that happened this episode. So the episode kicks off with Issa and Nathan, who are actually apartment viewing, and yes guys, they're serious about this. So they're talking about how much they love the place and all that makes it great, and of course eventually things get awkward because Issa sees like a half bath, and then she says to him, you can use this bath, you can use it to do whatever you want. And because I know how you men do. And so he says, well, we ain't all the same. I don't know what kind of men you've been living with. And of course that just makes things awkward because obviously the unspoken is Lawrence that it brings up, and you can tell that Nathan is really insecure about like the whole Lawrence situation. So they decided to take an application and apply to the place because they like it so much, only for the realtor to say that he just rented it out. A hot mess. So now we're at Molly's job, and Molly's standing there with her two other co-workers that they were at the retreat. And Taurean approaches and he's just acting kind of funny. So one of the women said to him, like, why do you seem so coy? And she makes a joke, like she says, you look like they told you were going to be partner. And he actually confirmed and said, well, yeah, they actually did offer me the partnership. It seems like Taurean was just really worried about like Molly's reaction, because remember, Molly also wanted to be partner. I'm sure they all wanted to be partner. But instead, Molly was so happy for him. She was the happiest one. And she leaps into his arms and starts hugging him. And I think she completely forgot that she was at work. And I guess their relationship is still new, so they don't want everyone to know. So then she realizes that she may be doing just a little bit too much, and so she tries to cover it up by inviting all the coworkers, like, come on, get in, give this guy a hug. And I'm just like, oh my god, the awkwardness, it's too much. And so the coworkers for sure picked up that something was wrong, because even just the way her and Taurean eventually were like, oh, okay, thank you, and they walked away from each other. And then the coworker was like, yeah, they're definitely doing something, they're definitely sleeping together. So that was awkward. Lawrence is talking to Chad in his house, and as usual, Chad is just talking a whole lot of smack. And, they're talking about life, and he asks him, so are you going to go to Tiff and Derek's going away party? Because remember, Tiffany and Derek are moving to Denver. And Lawrence is just like, I don't think I'm going to go because Issa will be there. And so Chad is like, and yeah. And then he says, well, technically those are Issa's friends. So Chad says, well, you let her go without a fight. That sounds very peaceful to me. So Lawrence is like, what do you mean? And he was just relaying his own experience with his wife and saying that, when they had their rocky patch in their relationship, he had to do a lot and put out a lot of effort in order to get her back. So as far as he sees, nothing would have stopped him from getting her back. And the fact that Lauren just, like he said to Lawrence, like, you have a way of just sitting back and letting life happen to you. And of course that gets Lawrence thinking. Now we're at Tiff's and Derek's party, and Issa and Nathan are the first people we see. They're talking to Tiff and Derek and Kelly, and Issa and Nathan announced that they're moving in together. So of course Kelly's like, oh, like cohabitating? You know how Kelly is. And then after that, Molly enters with Taurean, and they look all happy and blissful and just black and in love, okay? So Taurean brought a gift, so Molly is like, oh, he brought you guys a gift. So then Tiff is like, oh, goody, like, give it to me. And then he's just like, oh no, it's trash. And meanwhile, he has a box in his hand. So Derek says, oh, you brought us trash? And then he's just like, yeah, no, it's just trash. So then Molly pulls him off to the side and it's just like, yo, is everything okay? Like, what's going on? And then he's like looking around and scoping, and he's realizing like there's a lot of kids. So he says to her, you know what? I actually brought edibles, and I'm realizing that it's that kind of party. And so in order to make him not feel as awkward, Molly actually says, well, it could be that kind of party, and I'll take one with you. And so they both take the edible, and I just feel like that's going to be an entirely bad idea. But anyways, after that, we see Lawrence, the one and only who said he was not gonna come, but I guess Chad changed his mind, and he enters with baby Elijah and Condola. And I'm thinking, why is Condola here? Because no one here is really her friend like that, and these two are also not a couple. But you know, we're gonna do what we do because I guess the story would be boring without it. So Lawrence spots Issa, and then Nathan, then he spots Nathan because Nathan like comes up behind Issa with some drinks. And then while he's looking at them all, you know, yearningly, like, oh my god, I may have messed my life up, Condola actually looks up from the baby and spots Lawrence, who is looking at Issa and Nathan. And somewhere along the line, she gives him the baby and she's just like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. At that point, Issa spots them because when she says she's going to the bathroom, she comes back to put, I guess, like a baby soda in the baby's mouth. And from a distance, they just look like the perfect family. So at that point, Issa is spotting them and looking at them the way Lawrence was looking at her earlier on. And then, not too long after that, Nathan spots Lawrence. And so he asks Issa, is that him? And did he really come down here just for the party? So she looks awkward, she looks uncomfortable, and then she eventually says, well, you know, he has moved back here for some time. Like, he's been back for a while. And he just looked so worried. The insecurity in Nathan is really showing. And I think you generally don't feel like this unless you know that your partner is still into this other person. And I think that's exactly what's happening here. And you can just tell that how the plot is going, shit's about to hit the fan. So first of all, Molly and Taurean, who they show first before Tiffany gives her speech, are completely at the beginning stages of being high AF. So Tiffany starts giving a speech or a toast, which is just very, very Tiffany. She spoke about Kelly and her friendship, and she went on about how Kelly is really her ride or die. She mentions Issa, and then she's just like, oh, I don't have another friend like you. And that's all she said, which I feel like was high-key shade. And then Derek, of course, talked about his Papa Pussy, which is like all his friends, including Lawrence and all these other guys, Chad, but he didn't speak about Chad specifically, and Chad was very offended. And then who do we see walking in? Dreu, because at the same time he hailed Dreu, who comes in with a new chick. And so, of course, Molly looks like she got the fright of her life. And so the girls eventually, after the speech, decide to go off by themselves, and then the men decide to gather separately. So they all sit down, the guys, and they ask Derek, so what are some of the things you're going to miss about, you know, being in LA? So he says, you know, the food, especially like the sushi, the barbecue, this kind of thing. So Taurean says, yeah, the barbecue is really good. Nathan says, well, you know, LA got bomb weather, but y'all gotta leave the barbecue alone. So Dreu interjects and he's just like, nah, man, like LA got some bomb barbecue spots. Here comes Lawrence, who co-signs what Dreu has said. And then, you know, Nathan is just like, well, I'm from Houston. So the rest of the guys are like, oh, okay, I can see why, because, you know, Houston has some bomb food. Here goes Lawrence. Well, no, I'm going to still stick beside my point that, you know, LA really has some bomb spots, and people who are not really from here just write it off because they haven't been here long enough. So then Nathan says, well, once people have been to Texas, or once people have had Texas barbecue, they know what's good. And then at this point, it's just like clear that there's some subliminals being thrown around. It doesn't even, they're not even talking about barbecue anymore. So after that, I think Lawrence said something like, well, you know, obviously, like, the barbecue's not good enough to keep some people, like, over Houston. In other words, he's just like, why didn't you stay your ass in Houston then, if it was so great? So then there's this awkward silence. It's very dense. Even Taurean was just like, oh, yeah, it's really dense in here. Because remember, he's high, so he's just saying whatever is coming to his mouth. So then Issa's brother tries to lighten up the mood and breaks the silence, and says that he wants some sort of haircut, and he asks Nathan like, oh, are you available tomorrow? So then Nathan says, well, no, I can't because Issa and I are still looking for apartments. And of course, Lawrence's face completely changed, and now he looks a big mad. We shift back to the girls. And they're in the room and they're all talking about like how they're making plans for each other to travel for each other's birthday because, Tiffany is leaving for Denver and Molly's birthday is coming up. So she says she's going to be coming back. And then they're like, okay, well, your birthday is right after. So we'll try to come out to you. And then Molly just starts laughing hysterically. I mean, hysterically, the whole gum teeth, everything's showing. So Kelly slapped the taste out of her mouth because we were just like, what is wrong with Molly? So then eventually she says that she took some edibles. And Kelly was just like, listen, I need you to let me know when you're doing drugs because we need to do them together. Like, you can't be out here having all the fun. And then they're laughing and having like a good old girl time. Here comes Condola. Oh, she's coming in because she needs a new bottle for Elijah, the baby. And when I tell you the whole vibe changes, and this is why you know she had no business being at this party in the first place. And then she and Issa get into this like weird back and forth trying to be polite type of conversation. Oh, I'm really happy for you, and oh, I heard about your on the block party, and this guy, I work with him. And I'm just like, can y'all just go your separate ways? Because I think it's so awkward. And then Issa herself is just awkward. And it's like once Condola left the room, it's like the air came back into the room, and Molly was just like, that was super weird. And I co-signed that. I co-signed that heavy. So Molly heads back outside, and of course she bumps into Dreu, and she has this weird look on her face, and then eventually she just goes over there. It's like she swallowed and just was like, I'm gonna deal with this. And then she goes over there and she says, well, I heard about the divorce and so on. And he was like, well, shit happens. And I'm just like, Dreu, no, shit doesn't happen. You're a cheater. You're a cheater, cheater, pumpkin eater. That's what happened. So he's obviously just not in a relationship anymore. Well, he is in a relationship because apparently he's dating the girl that he brought, but he's not with his wife anymore. So somewhere along the lines of them talking about the past, and he's basically saying to her, like, there was a time when they were actually friends and so on. He tried to reach out, but she didn't get back to him. Taurean comes behind him because he's like, you look good with that guy that you came with. And she was like, oh, you mean him? And Molly's just like, oh, this is Dreu. We heard telling Taurean that. We dated, kind of, sort of, because he was married, and, just like the whole life story that didn't nobody ask for. And Dreu was just like, okay, Molly, like, it's cool. So it's clear that he was just uncomfortable. And of course, Molly and Taurean are super high, so they're both on the same frequency. So he was just like, I'm cool with that. Everybody has a pass. Of course, Dreu has long since walked away because now it's just too awkward for anyone to even bear. Then we move on from them and we see Nathan goes outside to a friend of his that wanted something because I think it was keys because he locked himself out of the barbershop. So he heads outside after walking away from Issa, who was at the buffet table trying to talk to him anyhow with just a very just shifty vibe. You could tell like his whole vibe is just different. And for me, Nathan is very passive aggressive, and I don't like that. But we all got flaws. Condola reveals to Lawrence now that she spoke to Issa when she was inside, and that she's glad she spoke to Issa because, she doesn't like having that awkward vibe between them. And then she says she's gonna leave because baby Elijah clearly wants to go home, and she tells him, no, you stay because this may be your last time to be with your friends. So again, we see Nathan outside. He's talking to that friend of his, and he reveals that, bro, Issa's ex is inside, and he's being all slick and shit. And when I tell you, homie was down for the trouble. He was just like, yo, you want to roll up on someone? Like, very ready to fight for his bro. But Nathan was just like, nah, bro, I'm just keep things cordial. We go back inside, Molly and Taurean. Now they're high, like on the highest levels of high. And they're just watching everyone come out of the kitchen, like the staff come out of the kitchen with food that they don't want. So then Molly says, we need to go to the source. They go into the kitchen, and when I tell you these two damn near ate every single thing that was in sight, which would have annoyed the hell out of me as the host. But eventually one of the staff members head back to the kitchen, and Molly says, oh shit, someone's coming. So both of them run to the pantry. And Taurean has like cheese balls in his pocket, their mouth, like both of them, their mouths are stuffed with food. And so Taurean is like, what are we doing? And then they busted out laughing. Eventually Molly just reveals that she's a little bit scared because things are so easy with him, and she knows that people tend to get tired of her, and so she's just very worried that that's what's going to happen with him. And he just reassures her that that's not going to be the case, because with him it was the opposite, and he literally could not stand her before. And of course, they go at it in the pantry. So while they're doing that, we're seeing Issa, who is behind the building or at the side of the building, taking out the trash. And of course, who corners her out there? Lawrence. And he comes and he asks her why she called him the other day, last month. So she said it was a mistake, and he meant like, do you mean it was like an actual mistake, or was it that you called me and that was the mistake? So she said, no, I called you intentionally, but then I realized after, like, that was just a bad idea and I shouldn't have. So he said, there are things that I have on my chest, and I don't want it to seem like I'm not fighting for you, and things are different now. At the time, there was Condola and the baby and this and that, but things are different now, and I don't want to leave without saying something and letting you know how I truly feel. And so she was just like, you know what, I can't do this right now. This is not the right time, and I don't have the capacity to do this with you now. So then he asks her, are you happy? Because I realize that I'm just not happy when I'm not with you. And then he says he loves her. So Issa is literally stunned and is just standing there looking stupid, quiet as usual. And enters Nathan. And he's just like, what's all this? So then Issa tries to just like diffuse the situation by saying, I was just taking out the trash and trying to walk off with Nathan. But then Lawrence could just not let things go. And then he was just like, no, we were actually having a conversation. So Nathan is big mad, and he has been annoyed all day with Lawrence, like his whole presence. So he got heated quick, and then Lawrence was just like, yo, calm down, bro. I feel like everyone kept telling Nathan to calm down. So the next thing, he's just like, I'm calm. But then they start going at it like they're actually gonna fight. So then Issa is in between them, Molly's in between them, there's some extra people in between them. And when I tell you, Issa's just like, Nathan, chill, Nathan, chill. Nathan is like, I'm chill, like super loud. Like, I'm so tired of people saying I'm not chill. So he is like walking away, and Issa tries to touch him, and he shrugs her off, and he's just like, you know what, I just need a second. And when I tell you, you see Tiffany and Derek over there looking at them like, when you're so embarrassed by the people that you've invited to your event, it's just like, no, I did not bring these people here to ghettoify my event. And it was just awkward. Everyone, they've pulled so much attention, like the whole party basically stopped to look at what they were doing. And then Molly comes up to Issa and says, girl, you okay? And of course Issa's standing there looking stupid, and that's when the episode ends. Well, I don't know. It was a fun episode, and I feel a little bit bad that it took 9 episodes for us to kind of get to like some of the meat of the matter of what we really wanted to see. I'm happy Issa finally has the information that she needed, because I think the impression from her end is like, oh, Lawrence just moved on and he's in this utopia relationship with Condola and his baby. So I'm glad at least that part has unraveled. And I feel like Nathan also needs to be set free, and I'm glad he overheard a bit of the conversation between Issa and Lawrence. And I would like for him to take this decision to walk away, because if he's waiting on Issa, I don't think she's gonna let him go. I think she's gonna hold on to him for as long as she feels like she needs a crutch. But yeah, guys, that's it for this week. Let me know what you think about this new audio format. It's a little bit easier to get done earlier. And leave your comments down below. What do you think about this Issa Nathan situation? Do you want to see them together, or do you feel like Lawrence really did the right thing by letting his feelings out? I think he's just a bit selfish for me. He doesn't seem to care what's going on in other people's lives, and he just wants what he wants. And I blame Chad for giving him the boost of energy that he needed to think that he was in the right to do something like this. Because at the end of the day, Lawrence made his own decisions, and those are the reasons why he and Issa aren't together. So I don't know what's all this energy for Nathan, but Nathan definitely needs to be more secure in himself. But that's hard to do when you're dating someone that you know is in love with somebody else. But yeah, I've talked it to death, so now I'm ready to hear from you guys, and leave it in the comments. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next week, guys, kisses and hugs.